Hey there folks, welcome back to West Virginia Cryptids and Strange Encounters. Today I'm in Randolph County, just outside of Elkins. I'm actually on Bickles Knob and Storrs Knob, I guess they'd call it. This area is known for some vocals, and I guess there's been some tracks found here in the past. And I'm just up here hanging out. I decided we had a warm day that I wanted to come up and do a little night camp, in my little trailer that I got. And just hanging, just enjoying the evening. It has cooled down quite a bit now. It was, I think, close to 70 today. But once I got up here on the mountain a little bit ago, and the sun went down, it definitely got colder. But I'm sitting here, just listening, trying to see if I hear anything, and reading my book that I put together earlier this year. It's called Old Man of the Mountain, the West Virginia Bigfoot. It's several accounts that I've collected. Whether it's first-person interviews, investigations, or some that I have found online, and I thought maybe it'd be cool, do a little different video and share some of these with you. So I'll read 4 or 5 of them, and pardon me as far as my reading. Sometimes I get a little tongue-tied, but yeah, let's try it. Let's put on the old man glasses first. So we're going to start with this one here. Sighting in Fayette County, West Virginia, 2013. This was sent into West Virginia Case, which is West Virginia Cryptids and Strange Encounters. This was sent in by a West Virginia Case follower who would like to remain anonymous. Year 2013. Time of year, it was fall, the week of Thanksgiving. County, Fayette. Nearest road, Route 60. Nearest town, Lookout, West Virginia. So let's get started. Eyewitness description of the creature. It was close to 6.5 to 7 foot tall, dark brown to red hair. It had a very smushed face, almost a flat nose, very dark, and the arm stretched past its waistline. It appeared to be eating the remains of a deer. A few years, okay, here we go. We'll go into the account. A few years back, I was staying with my best friend. It was the night before rifle season came in, and we had gone out to scout where we were going to hunt the next day. Filling off that morning, I still went to my spot and sat down in my stand for the day. About an hour before daybreak, something started moving around below me under the ridge past where I couldn't see. This made me feel very uneasy because I felt like I was being watched, which continued until 11 a.m. when I finally decided to walk out, get lunch, then return to my stand. As I walked out on a logging road overlooking a bowl down the mountain full of hollies and brush, I started smelling an awful odor. That's typical for some, not all, but some. I figured it was an animal or something had died down the hill from me. After eating my lunch, I made my way back down the road. Arriving at the bowl, the stench was still lingering. I glanced down the hill looking for any signs of a carcass. I noticed a large brown spot in the thicket, so I threw up my rifle to get a better look. I noticed what looked like a bear, but a brownish red, which they're here in West Virginia, black bears, I can understand that. Black bears are bright, can be black, cinnamon colored, and even almost somewhat of a blonde color. Of course, we only have black bears. So I got very nervous, being about 20 at the time and by myself. I started making a commotion to scare it off before getting in my stand. But I got more than I bargained for once it stood up on 2 legs and shifted its weight to look at me. We made eye contact that felt like it lasted for minutes before it turned away and took off. Within 4 to 5 strides, it was out of my view and what I figured to be gone. It was at least 5.5 to 7 foot tall. I mean, I know that's a pretty good gap, but the distance and thing moving, it's hard. It is hard. Sometimes height and stuff is hard to judge. Judging by the trees it was standing beside, what I believe to be a Bigfoot. Later that night, returning back to his. Okay, this is where I Okay, yeah. Later that night, returning back to my house, we were in the garage talking about the plans for hunting the next day. It sounded like something was hitting the roof. We walked out 2 or 3 times trying to see or hear anything for about 15 to 20 minutes. It ended up being rocks and sticks hitting the roof of the garage, which we found the next day. But finally getting fed up with it, we took lights and walked up the hill in the woods beside the garage when something very large started charging at us, then turned and ran back up the hill approximately 200 yards from where I had been hunting. So, did this thing actually follow him home? Or to his buddy's house, I guess? And again, here we go. Additional witness comments. I never went hunting by myself up there again. I always have the encounter in the back of my mind when I go hunting, hoping I don't run into another one. I completely froze in fear when we saw each other, though I was armed and had sights on him. I've only told 2 or 3 people about the encounter, and they called me crazy. That wasn't what I saw, which a lot of people get called crazy. And that's why a lot of people don't want to share their encounters. And that's kind of sad. But to this day, I know that was no normal animal. My best friend has had experiences with it other than that day, but he refuses to talk about it. About 4 years ago, they started logging up there, and he said the encounter stopped soon after. Okay. In my little investigating kit, I carry these little pictures. They're 4x4 pictures I carried like cards. Well, they're actually pictures. I had them printed. And they're artist renderings of faces that I found online that have been made to represent what people have seen. Whether it's, and I use them whether it's for somebody to choose one picture, or whether it's for somebody to choose multiple characteristics from multiple pictures and give me an idea of what they saw, and sometimes just to show people the pictures and have them pick. And this is one of them. And when I showed it to the witness was asked, says the witness was asked to pick a face from a random group of pictures I put together. This is the one that was chosen, and this is the witness comment. This one almost exactly, just a little darker face, but yes, that one. So this is what he claims to have seen through his scope. And that was again in Fayette County. Okay, we'll jump to the next one here. Sighting in Cabell County, 2012. Sent in by a West Virginia case follower who would like to remain anonymous. You'll see a lot of these folks would like to remain anonymous. There are folks in here that I have permission to use their name, but the majority of them would like to remain anonymous, and that's because they don't want to be made fun of, ridiculed, and things like that. Date, August 2012. I remember talking to this fellow on the phone. County, Cabell. Location between Barboursville and Huntington, West Virginia. Eyewitness account. I live in Cabell County. I was coming home late one night after work. It was August of 2012. I was working the second shift that night. It was just after 11 p.m. when I was driving home on Route 60. I remember it being hot that night. I had my AC up. I was in Barboursville headed towards Huntington, but I live in Barboursville. Anyways, coming from left to right, I saw a gigantic figure cross the road. I stopped. No one was behind me at the time. I didn't see its face. It was above my car. In my headlights, I saw reddish brown hair. In one motion, it cleared the turning lane and was off the road to the right. I turned into my subdivision, stopped, and rolled down my passenger window. It It was probably not the smartest idea at the time. Maybe not. I didn't see anything. Granted, it was dark and after 11. However, whatever that was went down a man-made stone wall creek bed into the creek. I don't know anyone who would attempt that in daylight, let alone at nighttime. I can't swear it was a Bigfoot. I don't know what it was. It was big and walked on two legs. Description sounds like a Bigfoot. I mean, hairy, big. Yeah, sounds like one to me. And for folks that listen to me read these stories, I like I said, I get a little tongue-tied, and these stories are written in that person's word, that person's voice. I mean, yeah, they're not grammatically correct, and sometimes I have a little trouble with following along. But yeah, they're written in that way. Nothing has been changed. I didn't change them. I just would omit the names and stuff like that. Okay, here's the next one. Sighting in Harrison County, 1974. Season, spring. Date, 5/01/1974. Harrison County. Nearest town, Stonewood. Nearest road, Old Logging Road. The witness account. This is a story as we relayed to the investigator. Just after dark, the witness, who was 15 at the time, and his friend were getting night crawlers to go fishing with. Just behind their house, which like many West Virginia houses is rural. There was an old logging road which was covered by very heavy greenbriers. The witness heard something coming down the mountain through the greenbriers. He shined his flashlight and saw an enormous animal which was built like a large bodybuilder. He watched the animal from 60 feet away, traveled right to left. He watched the animal for several seconds. What stuck out in his memory the most was the swinging arms and the hair 10 to 12 inches long hanging down off the forearms. That's a lot of hair. Very long hair. That you hear it typically 4 to 6 inches, but 10 to 12. The hair in general was mostly straight and dark brown in color with reddish tinge at the tips. It really scared his friend and him. The next day, based on a sapling, they estimated the animal to be 9 feet tall. Again, is it a Bigfoot? It sure fits the description like most. And here's another one from Harrison County. Mystery of Margaret. I gave it that name. The gentleman that told me this story several years ago, sadly has passed away since then, since telling me this. But I was able to, I'm happy that I was able to record his story, document it, and get it down, to preserve it. This is a story shared with me by an older gentleman who would like to remain anonymous. Again, like I said, most people want to remain anonymous. There are folks out there that are happy to share their names. They like to get their story out there because they don't want to, well, they want to see if others have had the same experience. So they want to be validated. Eyewitness account. What I'm about to tell you happened more than 40 years ago. I was fresh out of the Vietnam War and living on our family farm in a little backwoods community called Margaret in Harrison County. I was at the farm watching some of my nieces and nephews. And the reason he was watching his nieces and nephews after because I talked to the gentleman multiple times. His father passed away like when he was a young child, and his older sister lived with them, and she had a few kids. And once a month, his mother and sister would go to town to get food and stuff like that for the house. So that's why he was asked to watch the children. The water in the house had stopped running. So I told one of my nephews to go to the cellar where the pump for the water well was located. The entrance to the cellar was on the outside of the house. you had to go downstairs at the back of the house, walk to the back wall near the far corner of the house, then walk down another set of steps to the cellar. Okay, let me set this up a little better for you. When he walked down the steps, he told me there was a yard, like a small yard, and there was a like a root cellar, smoke shed off to the right, and the house was kind of in the small L shape. And at the corner of that L is where the steps went under the cellar, or went to the cellar to where the pump was for the water. My nephew was afraid to go alone, but I had to stay with the other children. Sorry about that. My nephew was afraid to go alone, but I had to stay with the other young kids. So I told him I would stand at the back door to keep an eye on him, and he had nothing to be afraid of. Boy, was that about to change. As he walked to the second set of steps and started down toward the cellar, a huge arm, about 6 feet off the ground, with a large 5-fingered hand and covered in long reddish hair, reached around the corner of the house, like he was about to grab his head. I screamed at him to watch out. He turned just in time to see the arm pulling back around the corner. He then screamed, jumped, and ran back to the doorway where I was standing. I did not see anything other than the arm. I can't say what it was I seen, but after time and hearing other stories over the years, although I never experienced anything like it again while living on the farm, which was sold some years later, I can only speculate it was a Bigfoot or something like it. So that was in Harrison County. That was in the, this was actually in the early 70s. And I thought that was pretty interesting because this one here is also in Harrison County. Stonewood and Margaret are somewhat of a distance apart, not a huge distance. But yeah, same time frame. It's somewhere in there. Could have been the same creature, you know, possible. I don't know how far they'll travel, you know, exactly, but it's a very good possibility. Okay, sighting in Jackson County. County, Jackson, date unknown. Eyewitness account. I have a story that happened in Jackson County. About 30 years ago, we bought an abandoned farm on Gay Road. Our son, then about 11, had been playing in the creek, and he came home scared to death. He said when he climbed up the creek bank, something big and hairy was standing up watching him. I asked him if it was a bear, and he said no, it was Bigfoot. I asked if it was a large coon. Why would you ask him if it was a coon? That's, you know, I mean, I understand coons could get up 30, 40 pounds, but But to ask him after that, after asking if it's a bear, it's kind of weird. And again, no, it was Bigfoot. He was obviously very shaken. I asked him if it was the odd man who used to own the property, and he said emphatically it was Bigfoot. Recently, I asked him what he really saw, thinking he would own up to Mom after all this time, but he just said it was Bigfoot. So there we go again. A child that seen something and related to his parents, his mom, and over many years his story never changed. So, did he really see a Bigfoot? I believe so. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed those stories as much as I enjoyed sharing them with you. If you'd like to have your own copy of The Old Man of the Mountain, the West Virginia Bigfoot, head over to Amazon, search up my name, Les Odell, or you can follow the link I put in the description box. And if you happen to be in Sutton, West Virginia, down in Braxton County, head over to the West Virginia Bigfoot Museum. They have some copies there. That being said, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy it. Leave me some comments. Tell me what you think of the stories. There's plenty more in here to read. Bye, y'all.